Hey, what's up, and thank you for clicking on this video. So today I'm going to review the Calgary Barbell 16-week training program. Now I don't know if I said that right, Calgary. Sounds a bit Canadian, but I actually don't know if that's right, so apologies if I butchered that straight off the get-go. So I'm going to review this program today. I'm excited to review this program because I've heard a lot of good things about it. It does fall into my intermediate programs that I do recommend. I'm going to just react to this and review it. I'm not going to necessarily walk you through too much in a tutorial because, as you can see on the screen already, there are 2 tutorial links already that Bryce, the guy who owns the channel, owns the gym. He's a fantastic powerlifter, this guy. I've seen him at the IPF. He's a big guy. He's tattoos, big hoop things in his ears. I don't know what they are, but he definitely stands out from your typical powerlifter, IPF powerlifter. So this program looks great. Straight off the get-go, I'm looking at sheet 1, training maxes. So I must say, firstly, this program doesn't work off your 1 rep, your training max. So if anyone doesn't know what training max is, it basically works off 90 to 95% of your 1 rep max, based on the fact that not every day you're going to be at 100% strength. You're going to have fluctuations in daily strength, and especially a program with a lot of volume that lasts 15 weeks, it's better not to train off your 1 rep, better to work off a TM. So in this instance, it's 95% of your 1 rep max, which we can see in the formula bar. In a lot of programs, especially novice ones, it's normally 90%, but this time 95%, which makes sense for an intermediate. Okay, so this cell right here, rounding, if you're doing pounds, keep it at 5, 2.5 if you're doing kgs. So do make sure that you edit that. Now, anything in green, you can edit. So this is where you put your 1 rep max. I'm going to leave it at the default, just leave it as it is. You got some notes here. I've read them already, definitely helps, clears things up. It's not too much waffling, which I like. I hate these notes that go on for like 2 A4 pieces of paper when you print them out. So yeah, that's great to see. Now this program does incorporate the concept of RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion. Again, as you can see in the instructions, he said take his RPE suggestions with a grain of salt. They're flexible. Obviously, every day you have daily strength fluctuations. Some days you might feel a bit weak, a bit sick, not 100%, so you might want to lower the RPE. Some days you might feel amazing. You might want to go from 8 to 8.5 or 9, or even 10 or 9.5. So again, that's down to you, which RPE you want to use. But based on what he suggested, and having already checked this program out, looked at it for a little bit, I do recommend keeping with his RPE suggestions, especially towards the end of the program, which I'll explain later. Now right here, I've just included some notes on what each RPE means, because it doesn't have that. A lot of the recommendations he has is to do an RPE of 8. So you're beginning to hit 2 to 4 rep stride. The weight is too heavy to maintain fast bar speed, but it isn't a struggle. So that's why he's pretty much recommended 8, because it's that sweet spot between doing quick dynamic bar speed work and maximal effort 9 to 10. So I like that. I'll talk about this later. This is from me. This isn't from Bryce. All right, let's look at week 1 to 4. Now, I'm kind of seeing a structure of kind of block periodization training here. This reminds me of the sort of accumulation phase block, where you've got higher volume. Okay, and we can see that lower intensity, so less weight, 47, 47, 70, 73, 75. We can see on the competition lifts 67, as you can see. With higher volume, so we're doing 4 sets 7, 4 sets 7, 3 sets 6, 3 sets 6, and with your accessory and assistance work, you're doing 5 sets 10, so high reps, So higher volume, lower intensity, and we're seeing a lot of variation here, so pretty low specificity. If we actually start to look at these exercises, we got pause benches, we got 3-second pause bench again, safety squat bar, pause squats, pin squats at depth, spotto press, 2-second pause deadlift, rep bench, so you just touch and go. It's kind of a bodybuilder style bench press. And I've even analysed it at the bottom. C stands for competition lifts, V stands for variation. And as we can see, we've got very little competition work here in terms of doing the actual competition lift. So the way you would squat at a competition at a meet or a bench or the deadlift. But we got a lot of variation work. 4 variation exercises for the bench, 2 for the squat, 1 for the deadlift, and 1 competition. So that's why I would see this as that sort of first phase, that first block. Now looking at it straight off the barbell, you can see that there's a lot of pause work in Bryce's program here, which is great because I think not enough powerlifters work on pause squats, pause bench press, pause deadlift. So it's good to see that. Clearly he favours this concept of pausing, which makes sense with the bench more so than the other ones, because if you think about it, a competition, you get the command and then you get the command to press. Normally when it's on the chest, resting on the lower chest area, it's quite a long pause, especially at the IPF or these sort of federation competitions and meets. It's a long pause. It's like sometimes it feels like forever. So it's good to get in that habit of being able to not just touch and go. So that's quite good to see. What I like about this program is it gives you the intensity, the load, but also gives you an idea of what your tempo should be, which is great because I haven't seen a lot of programs do that, especially sort of cookie cutter ones which aren't customized for anyone. As we can see, we've got 1 second eccentric, 0 seconds pause, and then concentric back up to the starting position, 1 second. So that's what it means by 1.0.1. And then it gives you the recommended rest period. So 1 in seconds, not minutes, in case you made that mistake. So yeah, we can see this sort of week 1 to 4, we got volume. In the accessory exercises, assistance, and the competition list, we've got high variation, a lot of pause work, and some pretty good choices of accessory exercises as well. I like the incline rows, the overhead press, bent over rows, reverse hypers, and I've color coded them based on what exercise they are. Now with the pin squat, it says depth, which implies that the pin should be put at position of depth, which I've used the definition from the IPF. So we can see by just looking at the comment, the lifter must bend the knees and lower the body until the top of the surface of the legs at the hip joint is lower than the top of the knees. So that's what I perceive to be depth. And we can see the barbell with the pause. You probably want to do that about mid-shin position for 2 seconds. Touch and go means you're not pausing on the chest, you just touch and go, but you don't bounce off the chest. And Romanians, no, it doesn't mean that you just sit next to Romanian people for 3 sets of 8. It's RDLs, Romanian deadlifts. So they're not stiff leg deadlifts, there's a difference. Check out YouTube, there's like a million videos on the difference between the two. So week 1 looks pretty simple. Week 5 to 8. Okay, we can start to see now that the volume has decreased. We're starting to incorporate this concept of back off sets. 2 sets of 5, 2 sets of 5. These are what we call back off sets to add volume. When you're starting to get to that phase of transmutation where the volume is dropping and the intensity is increasing and the specificity is starting to go up, meaning you're focusing more on the competition lifts. And we can see that, look, we're doing 2 competition lifts a week for all 3 main lifts, and the variation has dropped to just 1 for the squat, 3 for the bench, and 1 for the deadlift like before. I mean, you can't deadlift as much as you bench press. That's just a rule of powerlifting. Yeah, and we can see that the volume has dropped for the accessory exercises and the assistance exercises. We've gone to 4 sets of 10 instead of 5, so that's something else. Yeah, the intensity has gone up 80%, 82%, 86 and 85%, which we can see 80, 82, 86, 85. We can see that for competition lifts, these ones, and the bench press competition lift. But because it's a pause, so you never actually do a straight competition style bench press in this program. You are always doing a pause variation, and we can see here that the pause should be 1 second. So it's all, that's why it's a lower intensity. And here we can see that he's used the 8 RPE scale. And remember, you can change this based on how you're feeling that day and how your strength is, but that's a good recommendation. And it's what it's done here is it's taken the training max, and then it's taken the cell for 8 RPE. So 8 RPE, how many reps were we doing? So you have to check. So we're doing 4 reps, RPE of 8, and an RPE of 8. So it's recommending 84% of your training max for this day, which sounds about right for 3 sets of 4. So that sounds about right, in all fairness. You could lower that slightly, but I wouldn't increase your RPE, even if you're feeling a bit strong on that day. But as you can see, going back to my original point, there is no straight competition bench press like we got with the squat and the deadlift here. So that's why it's 70% instead of 80%, because you've got that pause, so it's a longer rep. So you have to drop the intensity. But look at the volume on this though, 6 sets of 5. Yeesh, that's high volume, which is great. I'm a big fan, as I said in my previous videos, of high volume bench pressing. I like it. I like the idea of it, and I think it will help you break through those plateaus. So yeah, as we can see, the intensity is now dropped, the variation has dropped, and specificity has increased. We're now incorporating the concept of these back off sets for the deadlift, for the competition deadlift, and we've got still doing pause work for the bench press, but we've incorporated RPE now, the spotto press, touch and go, RPE of 9, so that's pretty high RPE for 3 sets of 6. So we go over to here, 6 RPE of 9, so 81%. So that, again, that sounds about right for 3 sets of 6. So I'd say his RPE ratings are spot on, especially if you're following this program properly. Now, a lot of people have asked me, how do I structure this in terms of frequency, what days to train, yada yada. I would say I watched too much Jerry Seinfeld recently, which is why I've got that expression. So you would maybe do this session Monday, take a day off Tuesday, take a day off Wednesday, maybe Friday, and then Saturday. So kind of a 1 day on, 1 day off, with exception of Friday and Saturday session. So yeah, all in all, we can start to see that the accessory work has dropped, the accessory and assistance work, the volume has dropped. Also, the number of exercises you'll do has declined. We're doing more competition training, so that looks about right. It looks fantastic, actually. Okay, and then we're going to week 9 to 11, so we're getting closer now to kind of peaking, but we're still in that kind of, in my eyes, we're still in this sort of phase, this transmutation, where we're still decreasing the volume, increasing the intensity, focusing more on specificity rather than variation, but we're not quite at the final block yet. So again, we can see here 82%. Start with 82, 85 and 83. So this final week you're kind of backing off a little bit. You're not actually following this linear progression of 82, 85, 87, 90. We're backing off slightly. And we got this drop sets again, 2 sets of 4 this time. The intensity has increased, the volume has decreased. And this time the competition focus has gone up, and the variation has dropped, with exception to the bench, really. As we're getting closer to focusing on specificity, we're getting closer to the meet, so now we're trying to transition into focusing on the competition lifts rather than the variation lifts, which is a smart thing to do. Again, we're seeing a decrease in the volume for the assistance and accessory exercises. Incline row, 4 sets of 8. We're using the RPE for the bent over rows. I quite like that idea, and it gives you an indication of the load. All in all, this is pretty similar to week 5 to 8. Just the specificity has increased and you're training with greater intensity, but the general layout is the same. Pin press, you're doing pin press chest, so that means chest level. That doesn't mean top range, mid range, that means bottom range of the chest exercise. So you're pretty much maybe like an inch off away from the chest. You can pretty much feel the bar on your chest, basically. So again, it's similar to getting that depth on the pin press for the squat. We're doing close grip bench press variation instead of the spotto this time. I like that. I basically live on close grip bench presses. It's my favorite variation to strengthen the triceps. And we've incorporated the mini bands for the bench this time instead of touch and go. That's brilliant. I like that. So you've got some band work, tension work as well. Very good. And as we can see here, I've made some notes. Now, I didn't know what the hell this meant at first. Probably one of my main criticisms of this program. A lot about this program, the way it's designed, is kind of assumes that the lifter knows. When I saw this right here, 1 plus 2F, I was like, well, what does that mean? There's no notes in the cells. There's no description on the first sheet. What does it mean? It's just implying that we know what he's thinking. Now, F stands for what they call fatigue sets, which are always at an RP of 9. Okay, you don't change that RP for that. So you do that top set for 1 set of 2 for 4 reps at the RP of 9, which is 370 pounds in this instance. And then you do 2 drop sets in this situation, 2 fatigue sets, whereby you just take 5 pounds off that weight. So you go 365 pounds. And you just do it for the prescribed number of reps for 2 sets. So then you do 2 sets of 4 for 165 pounds. Pretty simple, actually. It looks more complicated than it actually is, but it's not that complicated. And the R stands for what they call repeat sets. These are always done at 8 RPE. And all you do is you simply just repeat what you did for the first top set, 1 set of 4. RPE 8, 240 pounds, just do 2 more sets of 240 pounds and just keep the rest the same, the rest and the tempo the same. So that's really simple, actually. He could have just done with explaining that. It took me like 1 second to explain it. I don't know why he didn't bother. And we can see we're doing it for some of the accessory exercises here, the band work. So it's good to see that. I like the idea of these fatigue sets and repeat sets. So now we're getting close to the final week, the taper week, the preparing for the meet, the competition, the event. Now we can see that the specificity has now increased completely. We're dropping the assistance exercises, reducing the accessory exercises. There's not many variations on the competition lifts. We're basically focusing on competition lifts. It's the same theme. For the bench press, you are just doing pauses for every bench press. Even the competition is a pause competition bench press. We've got the pin squats here. It doesn't state what depth. Probably should state that, to be honest, because that's kind of ambiguous. It kind of makes you think, well, could I do it near lockout, mid-range, bottom range for depth? I would say keep it the same. So depth closer to rather, you're not going to benefit from doing lockout pin squats, so don't do that. And we've got pause deadlifts as well as the competition deadlift. So again, we're still doing pause work, but as we can see down here, with exception to the bench, the competition lifts focus has increased. We're doing 2 competition lifts for the squat deadlift and now just one variation for the competition lift. Okay, so it's important to note this cell right here, otherwise you won't understand what to do. So you enter the weight, the number of reps that you did. So what does it say? You must fill the grease of the weight you lifted in order to work out the back offsets. The back offsets and these ones right here, these ones are what they call the back offsets, so anything that's in green. So you must enter the weight that you lifted there. So let's say I did 380, just mix it up. And as you can see, it's calculated here how many I should do for 6 sets 5 on the back offsets at 65% of my TM. So that's what you do there, and you do the same for the bench. Oh, not 250. Pretty simple. Again, that's the thing about this program. It's really simple when you just pay attention to the instructions. And the same with the competition deadlift. Let's say I did 360, and it's determined what my back offsets are. Got the safety squat barbell come back into play, and we do it for one set of 2R. So you're going to do one set of 4 at an RP of 8 for 95 pounds, and then based on then you do a repeat set, so you just repeat that's for 2 more times, because it says 2R, so that means 2 sets of repeat sets. It's pretty simple. Pin squats, you do a 1 fatigue set. Close grip, you do 2 fatigue sets and 1 fatigue set for the spotto, and then you do 2 sets of fatigues and 3 sets of repeats for the touch and go. So once you understand the R and the F, it all makes sense. So again, the volume, the intensity is significantly increased now, and the volume has decreased quite substantially, even taking into consideration these failure sets, repeat sets, back off sets, which does add more volume, but it's still the main lift. The first one, this one here, we can see we're just doing 1 set of 3 reps now. So yeah, and the variation has decreased, so specificity is taken over at this point. And then once you finish that week, you do the taper week. This is the final one, and it's very self-explanatory here. 5 days from your competition, you do this. 4 days on the competition, 3 days, and then 2 days. As you can see, you do your opener for the first one, and then you do 3 sets of 2, 82% of your TM, not your 1 reps. Competition pause bench. It says pause bench really because when you do a meet, you get that, tells you the referees, they tell you when to press, and normally it's quite about 1 to 3 seconds, that pause on the chest. So that's good that you're doing that even on this last and final week when you're prepping for the meet. As you can see, we're still doing pause benches, even coming just 2 days before the meet, which is great. I'm very happy. I like to see that, because a lot of the time when I watch competitions, watch meets, events, a big issue is a lot of people just can't wait for that press command. They're just like they haven't practiced, they haven't trained the pause enough, and they've always done kind of touch and go. So when it comes to meet day, they're not prepared for that. So it's good to see that. And as we can see, we get close to the competition, we start to deload, and we start to do lower intensity, so we don't fatigue ourselves before a meet. So all in all, this is a great program. It's been well thought out, well planned. Could have done with a bit more on the instruction side, explaining some stuff, but generally it's great. Now there is an 8-week version, but I prefer the 15-week version. Don't worry if you're not doing this for a competition, you can still just do it normally, run it normally, just a 15-week, and maybe on this taper week you do the exact same and you set a new 1 rep max. So you don't necessarily need to do this for a competition. You can just do this in general training, off peak training. So yeah, it's a great program, a great one to start at. Now I'm going to keep the videos right here. I'm going to keep the instructions here. I'll delete this because this isn't really necessary anymore. I've made my point, and I'll keep all the notes just so you can remember. And I will keep this in here just so you have an indication of how many competition lifts you're doing, how many variations you're doing per week. So yeah, all in all, great program. Give it 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, this one, fantastic. So check out the Calgary, now I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, Barbell. They have a YouTube channel. It's really good actually. I checked some of it out before I did this review. It's definitely worth subscribing to and liking, and they're on Instagram as well, so check that out. So thanks for watching this video. Keep lifting, stay strong and stay safe, and never give up.